It started as a quiet afternoon in a peaceful neighborhood, the kind of place where families walk their dogs and kids ride their bikes. But behind the calm surface, trouble was waiting to strike. A group of men showed up, claiming to be HOA officers, dressed in uniforms that looked official enough to fool anyone at first glance. They walked around like they owned the place, questioning residents and pushing rules that no one had ever heard of. But what seemed like a simple misunderstanding quickly turned into something much darker. When they knocked on the door of one particular home, things took a sharp turn. Inside lived a young wife, unaware that these so-called officers weren't who they pretended to be. Their words became harsher, their actions more aggressive, and in that moment, the mask of authority slipped. One reckless move left her shaken, and that's when everything changed. Because what these fake HOA cops didn't know was that her husband wasn't just any ordinary neighbor. He was a former Navy SEAL, trained to protect and skilled to handle any threat. The moment he stepped in, the game shifted completely. But how far would he go to defend his family? And what shocking truth would be uncovered next? The husband had just returned from a run when he noticed something off. The so-called HOA officers were still standing on his porch, their voices raised, their posture stiff. From the distance, their uniforms looked convincing, but his trained eye caught details most people would miss. The badges were crooked, the patches mismatched, and their boots were the kind you'd never see on real officers. His instincts told him these men weren't here to enforce neighborhood rules. They were here for something else. As he got closer, he saw the worry on his wife's face. She had tried to remain calm, but the tension in her eyes said everything. The men were circling her with questions that made no sense, asking about security cameras, schedules, and neighbors' routines. Why would anyone connected to a homeowners association need that kind of information? His mind raced, and a knot of suspicion grew tighter in his chest. Memories of his training came flooding back. He had learned to spot deception, to read the subtle signs of danger long before it struck. And now, all those lessons felt alarmingly relevant. Who were these people really, and what were they after? The answer wasn't clear yet, but the danger was. The husband steadied his breathing as he stepped onto the porch, his presence alone enough to make the fake officers glance at each other. He greeted them calmly, masking the storm rising inside. His wife's hand brushed against his lightly, a silent signal that something wasn't right. He could see the fear she was holding back, and that only sharpened his focus. The men introduced themselves again, claiming to represent the neighborhood HOA, but their story shifted with each sentence. One said they were checking for unauthorized modifications to the property, while another mentioned complaints about suspicious activity. None of it lined up. The husband knew this wasn't about rules, it was about control. And the way they kept scanning the house, their eyes lingering on doors and windows, told him they had more on their minds than paperwork. Meanwhile, across the street, a neighbor peeked from behind her curtains. She had seen the same men earlier, lingering by her mailbox, pretending to take notes. Another family whispered that these so-called officers had demanded entry into their garage just the day before. The pattern was becoming clearer, but no one dared to confront them until now. The tension grew heavier with each passing second. Something far bigger than fake HOA rules was unfolding, and the truth was still hidden in shadows. The husband's jaw tightened as the fake HOA cops pressed harder with their questions. One of them stepped closer, his tone sharp, demanding to know if there were valuables inside the home. That was the final confirmation the husband needed. These men weren't here for rules or dues. They were casing the house. His training told him they were testing boundaries, waiting to see how far they could push before someone snapped. His wife tried to de-escalate, her voice steady but strained, asking them to leave paperwork or come back with proper identification. Instead, the tallest of the group smirked, ignoring her words, and shifted his weight like he was daring someone to stop him. The husband's pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed that the situation was seconds away from exploding, but he also knew that one wrong move could put his wife and neighbors at even greater risk. Around them, the street had gone eerily quiet. Curtains twitched as neighbors peeked out, too afraid to step in but unable to look away. The fake officers seemed to feed off the silence, their confidence growing as they closed ranks on the porch. The husband's muscles tensed, his mind racing through scenarios. The air felt heavy, charged with the sense that the breaking point was almost here, and once it came, there would be no turning back. Just as the tension reached its peak, the sound of a car engine echoed down the street. A dark SUV rolled up slowly, its windows tinted so heavily that no one could see inside. The fake HOA cops exchanged quick glances, their earlier confidence slipping for the first time. The husband noticed that instantly whoever was in that vehicle mattered, and not in a good way. The SUV stopped a few feet away, and the driver's window lowered just enough to reveal a hand motioning the imposters to wrap things up. Suddenly, the husband realized these men weren't acting alone. This wasn't just a scam targeting his family, it was part of something larger, something organized. His mind pieced it together, the probing questions, the insistence on security details, the way they had been watching other houses. These weren't random intruders. They were collecting information for a bigger plan. His wife's grip tightened. On his arm, her voice barely a whisper as she asked if they should call the police. But before he could answer, one of the imposters leaned in closer, lowering his voice in a way that was meant only for him. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he said. The husband's heart pounded harder. The stakes had just skyrocketed, and the real fight was only beginning. The husband stood his ground, his calm voice cutting through the charged silence. He told the men to leave immediately, his tone firm and unshakable. For a moment, it seemed like they might back down, but the SUV idling at the curb kept them rooted in place. One of the imposters tried to push past him, brushing against his shoulder, and that was the mistake that changed everything. In a flash, the husband's Navy SEAL instincts took over. His movements were precise, controlled, and wild, but measured to protect his wife and keep the situation contained. The fake officers, who had relied on intimidation, suddenly realized they were outmatched. Their bravado cracked as they stumbled backward, scrambling to regroup. The quiet street erupted with gasps from the neighbors who had been watching, their fear now mixed with awe. The SUV door opened, and for the first time, the husband saw the man inside. It wasn't some faceless stranger, it was someone from the neighborhood, a board member who had often spoken about tightening security around the community. That shocking reveal left everyone stunned. The fake HOA cops weren't outsiders at all. They had been working with someone trusted. Imposters retreated, but the damage was done. The truth had been exposed, and nothing in the neighborhood would ever feel the same again. The neighborhood remained frozen in silence as the SUV sped away, leaving only a trail of dust and unanswered questions. The fake HOA cops scattered soon after, their false authority stripped bare. Neighbors slowly stepped outside, one by one, their fear now turning into gratitude as they gathered around the couple. Whispers of disbelief filled the air. How could someone from their own community orchestrate something so calculated? The husband reassured everyone, explaining what he had noticed from the start: the mismatched uniforms, the strange questions, and the SUV that tied everything together. He encouraged his neighbors to remain alert and to never take appearances at face value. His wife, though shaken, stood tall beside him, her strength just as evident as his. Together, they had faced down a threat that could have spiraled much further. In the days that followed, the community pulled closer. Police were called, reports were filed, and an investigation was launched into the board members' hidden dealings. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves began to watch out for one another. The ordeal became a lesson in vigilance, courage, and trust. Though the danger was gone, the memory lingered, a reminder that real strength isn't just about training, but about standing up for family, for neighbors, and for the truth.